Today we are here to work with the Derwent Inktense ink pencils. The set that I have is 24 pencils. When I first tried these, I thought,
oh my god,
where have these been my whole life?
Hi, my name is Vanessa and I make art videos about a little bit of this and that. If that speaks to you, consider subscribing. The sketchbook that I'm going to be working in today is the Handbook Journal, and it is 300 GSM Grand Portrait style. It is 140-pound paper. The size is 10.5 by 8.25 inches, and it's acid-free paper. Alright, so I'm going to give you guys a preview to this video. It's going to be broken up into 3 parts. Part 1, I will be doing some swatching. Part 2, I will be doing different techniques. And then part 3, I'm going to be painting something with these Inktense pencils. Alright, with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I wish it was that easy, but it did take me about 30 minutes to do that. The paintbrush I'm going to be using today is my number 6 Da Vinci Castanillo paintbrush. The first color we have here is Sorbet Lemon. And right off the bat, I was completely impressed and blown away about how intense these colors are. This is Sun Yellow. This bright orange is Tangerine. Poppy Red, so pretty. Chili Red. Shiraz. Fuchsia, which is like a good old magenta. Violet. Iris Blue. This particular color is not as intense as the other ones, but it's still good. Bright Blue. Teal Green. Apple Green, which is a nice bright yellow green. Field Green. Leaf Green, which is more of an olive green color. This is Mustard, and the following colors are more of earth tones. Baked Earth. This brown is called Willow. Now this dark brown is called Bark. Very rich and intense dark brown. Charcoal Gray. Ink Black. And I don't even know why I attempted to swatch this one on white paper, but this is Antique White. I was so confused when I was swatching the outliner. It's just a graphite pencil. The last 2 colors are blues, which got out of sequence from the package. So these 2 are not earth colors, but this one is Deep Indigo and Sea Blue. And I will say I'm completely impressed and in love with these ink pencils. I am so glad that I have them, and if you have not tried them and you like color and paint, this is a perfect medium for you. Color, paint, and vibrant colors. Alright, so now we're on to part 2, the techniques. To do the drawing portion of the techniques, I actually took my sketchbook and these Inktense pencils to my Starbucks and decided to switch things up and get out of my art studio just to change things up a bit. When I was drawing with these pencils, I found them easy to draw with. No issues with putting down the pigment on paper. So my method to learning how to use a new medium is to try different techniques. So I will take that medium and figure out different ways that I can use them, and not always do all these methods work, but that's actually a good thing because I want to see what it can do and what it can't do. So I kind of push its limitations and see what I like about it and what I don't like about it. And for those of you that are unaware, I am a high school art teacher, and this is the same way that I teach my students, is that we actually take a new medium, we figure out the color, how they mix, and how to use the medium by breaking it down into different techniques. And I find this method is very helpful in helping the students on successfully using a new medium. Okay, so now we're back home and we're going to activate these with water. The first technique that I'm using is a gradient. I want to see if I can get the color dark to more of a fade off to light. And after attempting this technique, I realized I was better off by not actually pulling the ink all the way over when drawing. By making it lighter, I probably could have stopped sooner and just watered it down to fade it. Moving on to the next technique, I am doing a gradient of colors. So I'm blending colors together. I want to see how well I can get two colors side by side and get them to mix. And I specifically chose analogous colors. Analogous colors are side by side on the color wheel. They share a common hue, so when you do mix them together, they blend easily and beautifully. Up next, I chose to do layering the intense ink. So I put a lighter value of a base color, and then I went on top and did some design work with a darker color to see how well they mix. I wanted to try wet on dry technique, which is a really go-to technique for any painting medium, and so I painted this, let it dry. Since these particular inks are permanent when dry, I wanted to see if that was true. So once this dries, I'm going to add another layer on top and see if that bottom layer will not lift. On this technique, I'm trying to couple up the Inktense with watercolors. So I've got this design going, I'm going to activate it, and then once it dries, I'm going to come back and put watercolors surrounding this design. So this one, I am activating the butterfly design. I'll let it dry and then I'll come back and layer gouache on top to see how that looks. Next, we have some more mixed media. I will activate this design, let it dry, and then I'm going to layer a fine liner on top to do some drawing on top to see how well I can draw on top of the dried Inktense. Now this one, I laid another form of permanent ink, and that came from my Faber-Castell Artist Pit pens. That's my base, and then I did some line work with the Inktense and activated that, and that worked out pretty good. So I did like the results of that. Now for this last technique, I just decided to make different marks. So I called this mark making, and I just placed water on top. I didn't try to aggressively move the pigment on the paper around too much. I just kind of wanted to place the water and see if I could still have that line present after the use of my paintbrush. Now I'm going back to all of these techniques that I need a second layer and testing it out. So this is the wet on dry. I am drawing my design and then I'm going to activate it, and it worked out perfectly. The bottom layer did not lift. Up next, I'm pulling out my Boku watercolors, which I love these dark colors, and I'm going to use these watercolors to paint around the design that I put down. Now I'm getting ready to pull out my Holbein gouache. This is the gouache from the Iridori Spring collection, and I had made a video on this, so I'm using the leftover paint from that video to do some gouache painting on top of the Inktense. Now it is time to pull out my micron pen and draw on top of this dry Inktense design. I'm pleased to report that it was very smooth to draw on top of, no issues whatsoever, and I actually quite enjoyed using this method. So here's a quick overview of what it looks like, and I had fun experimenting with these ink pencils. Now it's on to part 3. Let's make something with these Inktense pencils. Now I drew this design off camera and I couldn't figure out what to do at first, and then I thought, why not a sunflower? I was actually looking through my camera roll and this picture came up, and I put down a sunflower that I took a picture of a couple years ago and thought it would be really cute if I drew a sunflower with a face. So that's what I did. When you activate these with water, they are just so powerful. It's the color that packs a punch. Again, let me tell you, if you like vibrancy, these pencils are for you. I really think with more time and practice, I can get really good at using these ink pencils on their own, but I actually wanted to experiment and put different media on one paper to see how far I can take it with all the media. So I actually tried to use all the techniques that I put down in part 2 on this design that I just made. Now I didn't film my whole process from the very beginning to the very end. I filmed them in segments because it would have been way too long to edit and figure out what parts to keep and what parts to leave. So you'll see me jumping around from one part of the painting to another. So I actually filmed quite a bit of the beginning stages, and then I got so into this design that I kind of cut off a lot of the process, but I think you'll get the point at the end when it all comes together. You watched my last haul for the month of May. I bought these Qor Watercolors. Actually, I had bought the Qor Watercolors in April, and then I finished up this palette in May, and I used that to paint details for the face of the sunflower. Also some of the shadows for the petals. Then I go in with some of the blue colored pencils and I use that to put down a background. At this point in the painting process, I thought I need something else, so I pull out my gouache, my Holbein gouache, and I start to do some detailing in the background and on the leaves and on the petals, a little bit everywhere. Oh wait, but before I do that, I use some of the Inktense pencils to do some wet on dry technique, and I ended up drawing some butterflies. And now it's time to activate them with some water. I love that the Inktense does not lift, the bottom layer does not lift when I reapply water. Then I pull out my Finetech pearlescent colors and do some detailing around the sunflower and bits here and there throughout the piece. And there you have it. This is it, guys. I am so glad that I purchased these Inktense pencils. I am completely in love and wowed by them. And those of you that have commented to me that I'm gonna love them, you are absolutely correct. They are fantastic, and I'm so glad that you came and watched this today. I hope you have a wonderful and creative day, and I'll see you next time.